Hey there, I'm taking a break from AWS Amplify Gen 2, and one reason is that I got frustrated because Gen 2 doesn't really work the way it's supposed to work yet, and I figured if I took a break for a while and came back to it, some of those issues might be worked out. Another reason is that I was preparing for a job interview for a company that uses Angular, and I wanted to refresh myself with Angular and some other things. And so that led me to try to do a project that was a little bit of the opposite of what I had been working on with Amplify. So in this one, we've got Angular instead of React and NextJS. We've got Angular material instead of AWS Amplify's UI library. And here I'm using Postgres instead of DynamoDB, so SQL versus NoSQL. And I have a REST API instead of a GraphQL interface. And this project doesn't have authentication yet, whereas the Amplify project had it right from the beginning, since Amplify does make that very easy. What else? In the other project, I hadn't implemented automated testing yet, whereas in this one, I already have started that. This project is Dockerized, and I developed it in a Devcontainer. And of course, as usual, all this stuff, or the repo and all this stuff is available. Just look for the link in the description. And in the next video, or the one after that, I'll be using Terraform to set up the AWS infrastructure. To start with, let's get a look at what the app looks like when it's running. So I can bring it up by running Docker Compose and just calling it Frontend, since the backend is dependent on the frontend and the database is dependent on, and the backend is dependent on the database to all come up. So it comes up, let's open that. As you can see, we have a really kind of simple app so far. We've got two kinds of models or things in this app, users and products. So we can edit items. So user 1 became inactive. We can create new things. And we'll say that one is available. And there we go. And that's really it from the front end. So let's take a look at how this all works together. Let's start with the Devcontainer, actually. So the Devcontainer started with the NodeJS TypeScript Devcontainer, and then I added SSH pass, so I could use the SSH agent and use that to authenticate with GitHub. Installed Angular CLI, Docker outside of Docker, which basically allows using the host machine's Docker inside the Devcontainer. He installed Prettier, which does what the name says. The AWS CLI, which I won't be using in this video, but will come into play next time. and Terraform likewise. And then I installed the PostgreSQL client. So if we look at that Devcontainer, you can see that's the image we're using. This is the features I just mentioned. I specify a network that allows Devcontainer and the front end, back end, and other services to be on the same network. And I specify these mounts to allow authenticating with GitHub using the host Docker daemon and allowing access to AWS credentials. This thing, I specify Chrome bin and specify Chromium for testing, and use a post create command to install Chromium. This thing is a little bit of a workaround right now. I had a little bit of an issue that other people doesn't seem to affect other people. I haven't worked out yet, but I found that. So I'm looking at the wrong file now. Let me look over here. I found I had a problem setting up bind mounts with the way I would expect to be able to do it, just by specifying a relative folder. I expected that to work so that within my app in the Devcontainer, there would be a bind to app/backend in the container for the backend. I mean, that is for the service, for the container for the backend. Wasn't working. I got an error saying that I documented this. If you happen to run into this issue, I'd like to know how you solved it or what you think about it. I got this message saying that the path workspaces interview prep backend is not shared, blah blah blah. That's not a helpful message, because workspaces isn't a real directory as far as I know, and it's not possible to share it via file sharing. And I wouldn't want to do that anyway, because what's the point of using a dev container if you have to customize customize with your local file system in this way. So I'm still looking into that, and as a sort of workaround, I am just setting up an environment variable, host project path, and using that in Docker Compose right there. So I could, this will also work, specifying an absolute path on the host machine, but I don't want to do that. So that, we'll come back to that maybe in the next video. So that's it for the Devcontainer. Let's look at the front end now. So for the front end, I'm using Angular 18, which is, as of this moment, November 11th, 2024 is the latest. And what aspects of Angular does it demonstrate? Well, flow control. So it's using the this new syntax, which is supposed to be more performant and is new in Angular 17. I'm using Angular Material 3 components. So the Angular material that matches the Angular 18. And Angular standalone components I'm using instead of modules. I have dependency injection using the inject statement, which has been around since Angular 14. I have React forms and form validation, and I'm using signal inputs. I'll call that out later, which is in developer preview. I'm using that to get parameters from the router and to use those values in the components. Using observables, of course. I have a custom pipe, an implementation of Angular Materials error state matcher, of course, injectable services and routing. And then Jasmine and Karma are there for unit and integration testing. Let's look at some front-end code. Where shall we start? Let's start with main TS. So we're bootstrapping the application, and we pass in a configuration, and the configuration comes from here. And I think this is mostly boilerplate. I'm providing the HTTP client, the router, and specifying component input binding, I think, is what gives me access, or gives me the input signals. What else? Component, this is pretty standard. Here in the HTML, we just have the navigation bar that you saw, and the router outlet. The way I organized the application, I have a core folder, core directory, and in it I put the error handler service and the nav component. So all things that are used throughout the application, and then the other directories are for kind of feature level things, like, where is it? Products, users. I'll consider that a feature kind of thing. So here in the nav bar, we're using the Angular Material toolbar module. And then I'm just using that. Nothing really remarkable here. You can see that the corresponding UI is this stuff. So triggering those menu items. We can come back to the error handler. Let's look in products. Products and users are basically the same. I mean, that is, the functionality is analogous. So let's start with the services, product services. So we have our API URL to talk to our backend. And we have the kind of standard REST API kind of things. Get products, get all the products from the service, or from the backend. get one product by ID, update a product by ID, and create a product. You might notice that the interface for the product type and the user that's coming from an npm package. What I did is use this shared directory is actually I published that as a package. So in the npm repository, there's this package, and so that makes it easy for each part of the application to import it. And all it consists of at this point are just these interfaces. Maybe there'll be some other code that goes into that later, but right now that's all that's there. So back in the front-end source code, products home is pretty much empty. It's just the router outlet. Start with the products list. So when this component loads, or when it mounts, we call get products to and subscribe. So we get the products back from that. If that fails, then we can open up this snack bar from Angular material to present an error message. And if we look in the HTML, you can see an example of the relatively new flow control syntax. So we're using the async pipe to get the products, and using the product ID to track that element for more performant rendering. Each product has a link to the detail, or to the update, actually, update form for the product. And then here I'm using the price pipe to format the price. Where's that? That should be in there. That's the shared directory within the front end. So it takes a value, returns it as a string that looks like a US money kind of string, like two places for cents and dollars and commas as necessary, the way you would expect, or the way a user would expect. Yeah, so that's product list. Then we have product create and product update use the same products form. Let's look at this one. Products create. So again, we're using product service and providing a method to call when the form is submitted, which simply calls the create product function on the product service. here. So here we're using the products form component. And when there's a form submit event, we'll call the form submit event. Yeah. And likewise, here's products update. So the difference here, of course, is that it's going to get, as a param, it's going to get the ID of the product to be updated. So here we see the input signal in action, the features that's in developer preview. So we got the product ID. And when the component loads, we call that input signal and pass it to the get product from product service, so we can get the product. And when it's gotten, we set the product data to the result. And then pass it into the products form. If we look over here, products form, oh, looking at the wrong one, sorry. Products form. There we go. Okay, so you can see using the reactive forms module, validators, various Angular material components, an error state method that I'll show in a second. Here we're getting the product that I just pointed out that comes in. And then when the form is submitted, we'll be sending out the product. So we set up the product form and specify some validators. Basically that the fields are required, and then that certain constraints on the price. ng changes is called when any data bound input property changes. So when the product comes to the component, is passed to the component, this is going to transform the product price, which in the database is in cents. It's going to turn into a floating point number with 2 decimal places. And of course, if it doesn't exist, then it would just be empty string. And then we patch the product form with this reset object that has the new price in it. Yeah, then we have an onSubmit handler, and really this is a little bit of a belt and suspenders because the form validation requires that they actually provide a name and a description and a price, etc. So a little bit redundant, but it does make sure that you get a default status of pending. Then if we look at HTML, can see the flow control syntax again. See that we're using the error state matcher, which I can show here. Did I put it in here? No. Utils, error state matcher. So basically, the purpose is to control whether or not to show the error message. And basically to make sure that just the form doesn't start out all in an error state, because even though no one has touched, quote unquote, touched or dirtied it, right? So saying if there's a control and the control is invalid and marked invalid by the validation process, and it's dirty or touched or is submitted, then it's gonna show the error message. So you can see here all that business, and just to show you that in action, we could go here. If I touch this by making it focused and then tab out of it, then we get the error message. Likewise, last name, email, likewise. So all that stuff. Or with products, if I tried to enter in -1, then I would get price must be greater than 0.01, has to be a positive number with up to 2 decimal places. So that's that stuff. Let's talk a little bit about front-end testing. You can see that I'm just using the built-in Jasmine Karma testing, and you could test under watch mode or not watch mode. We can run the test like this. Assuming, yeah, this should be enough. Yeah, so we get 80 successes. Yeah, so now that we were just running those tests, let's take a little look at them. I think there's not that much. I mean, they're kind of standard kind of testing. I've got mocks set up for the products. So mock data, a couple of products, and mock service. And then test for the basic things, and there might be some tests here that I marked as to do. So we're just checking whether we can fetch a product, update a product. Yeah. Yeah, if there's anything special that you'd like me to talk more about, feel free to mention it in a comment. So I have similar tests for the user service. some tests for the pipe and what it should do with values. Test for the error state matcher. The coverage is pretty good for right now. Test for the form. I'm not sure what I was doing there in the commented out part. So basically asserting that the controls are there, that they have validators. Oh, I think I was trying to validate the validators or something. Oh, yeah, I was trying to validate that the validator is what it should be, like inserting it on the reg expression, but I didn't quite master that. Yeah, so you can look at these in detail if you want. What's next? Hang on. If you want to run front-end tests in watch mode, so you could see feedback or test results as you make code changes, you could run this Docker compose and bring up the front end. And then, which is what I have running here. No, yeah, here. So the application is running in the browser. It's there in the browser. And then you could just run tests like this. So all the tests are passing. And you could so I think my test for this so this is asserting that there are two things in the user's menu. We could see what happens if we comment out one of them. So get one failed. And then if we look at the UI to this live update, yep, so now there's just one there. Used to be two. So you could be making code changes and monitoring your tests at the same time and checking your UI. So let's uncomment that. Now let's look at the backend app. We've got a NodeJS Express backend app. Setting up a server. We have route handlers. So if we look at the routes, we can see in the products route, set up a handler for getting all the products. So a default route for the products route. Get everything. We have we're using connects, of course, and the database is placed on the request object. So we're issuing a GET request, handling a GET request, POST request, doing some validation. So we've got the product schema set up here using Joy. A patch schema here, because in a patch you don't have to provide all the fields. And create. And so we've got a patch handler and a delete handler. Users is analogous, same sort of operations. In terms of, got a common error handlers or error class, not found for handling, for using with not found errors, and for using with validation errors. Got some middleware that uses that those error classes. So we can pass on the error message, and we've got a little logger function. So those are all part of the middleware. What else? And we've got tests. Got some integration tests and some unit tests. In terms of unit tests, got just making sure that they're just making sure that the server is started, and then returns a 200. For the integration tests, we have we can set up the database with the test configuration from connects. So in this connects file, we've got this configuration, and then got here the migrations and the seeds. So we can set up our database, or set up our tables in our database. So the products table is there. And we've got a down function too. So an up function and a down function for migrations. And so same sort of thing for users table. And then in the seeds, got some mock data, some data to put in there. So let's look at the tests. Right, so looking at the tests, you can set up the database to begin with, destroy it at the end of everything, and then before each test we can make them into transactions so that tests won't interfere with each other if they're making changes to the database. And then we go through the various things. Testing for getting products, should return a list of products, return a single product. If you try to get a product that isn't there, then you should get a proper response for that. Try to create a product. Put a product. Should be tests for patching. So all of those possibilities with some more still to do. Let's just go ahead and run the tests and see what that looks like. I can run the backend test with this command. See how this works. So yeah, so that just put up the tests and backend tests and ran them. You can run a coverage report. Actually, it's the test results plus the coverage report. So that shows some of the things are to do, some are past. And it gives us this coverage report. We should be able to see that coverage report let's see, where was I running it? Should be able to see we can see a web version of the coverage report this way. So if I go to this link, oop, that's not exactly what I expected to see. That's funny. It's like the graph looks ridiculous. Yeah, okay. It was just because I had it zoomed in. It looked kind of ridiculous. Giant donuts. So anyway, we get this display that actually allows us to drill down into tests or information about tests, so you could see what's passed, what isn't. You can click on the coverage link. You could go down there and see, the coverage is not 100% complete. So you could look in here and it highlights the parts that don't have, that it can't find coverage for yet. What else can we do? We can run tests in watch mode. And we could, again, go and make some change, like say that delete should return a 204 and say it should return a 205, whatever that is. And it reruns the file. Probably should update this report. I think it, yeah, you notice it only picks up the latest update. I haven't quite worked out how to get the test to show all of the results. I think I could probably type A and it would rerun everything. Because it, yeah, so probably that does that. But the coverage report itself doesn't quite update into the detail that I would expect it to. I guess it did here. So there's some discontinuity. The web or the command line display here should match what the web display is, but doesn't quite do that. So a little bit more finessing to do with that probably. Now I think I talked about everything except for the CI, the continuous integration. So we can do a little demo of that. The relevant file is here. Well, I also, what should I do? Yeah. You can see that we're setting up some actions to occur when there's a push on particular named branches and pull requests on those branches. Set up a database that the test can use. Check out the code. Set up node. Create a .pgpass file that the test database can use. Install dependencies. Run the backend tests. Install dependencies for front end, and then run the front end tests. And we can demonstrate that with, well, what did I do? I made a change in the README, and I made a change. Oh, I want to change that back. I don't want to keep that change. There we go. So we just have a change in the README file. So, and I'm on this fix/video changes. So let's try pushing that. Oh no, I didn't commit it. So push that. Oops, gotta publish. No, this way. So let's make a new pull request from this one. Yeah, so I had to switch my account to this one. Let's create this pull request. And the changes, or the tests get run automatically. Sometimes this is very fast, sometimes a little slower. So all the backend tests have passed. You might be hearing a little bit of noise from my neighbor. So there you go. So it all finished. Stop containers, post checkout code. So all the tests passed. So that means that I can merge this request with some confidence, which I'll just do. So I think that's about it. Did I show or talk about Docker Compose file? I think so. Let's go look at that 1 second. So you set up services for front-end, backend, database, test database used in tests, the migrate task. Yeah, the migrate task is used if you're setting up the app for the first time. It's a migrate service, I guess I should say. That's in the README under the building the app thing. And if you actually try that, I'd be interested to know if it works for you, if you have any problems or comments. I think that's it for now. Kind of a long video, but that's the way it goes. And next time, I think I'll work on the Terraform part of things, or maybe end-to-end testing, maybe both. So thank you. Today is Veterans Day, November 11th, 2024. And thank you to the veterans, like my father, my uncles, people I went to school with, all the veterans. Recognition of that historic day in 1919, November 11th, Armistice Day, right? Okay, thanks a lot. See you next time.